long have you been mayor of Willingboro?
Oh, wow. So I was actually selected by the council January 1st, 2020. And in Willingboro, the council selects who the mayor will be each time. So the term is just 1 year, and each year you're selected. So I got selected January 1st, 2020, and then selected again January 1st, 2021.
All right.
Yes.
So this is your second term?
Yes, second term as mayor.
I think that's a great thing. I've noticed that Willingboro, I grew up here most of my life.
Wait, what part?
All right, listen. We're not going to judge.
No judgment.
We're not going to judge.
No judgment.
I'm from Buckingham.
Okay. I have friends in Buckingham.
You know people in Buckingham.
I know people in Buckingham. Come on.
Growing up in Buckingham, I just always noticed a sense of community in Buckingham. And I think it was one of my favorite things. I always had, Mr. Floyd.
I know Mr. Floyd.
Mr. Floyd lives right down the street from me. Wow. So Mr. Floyd, and I went to school with his daughter, and he was such a community man.
Still is.
The concerned citizens of Buckingham.
Yes, that's right.
So, and it was so beautiful to see, just a black man take the lead on being concerned about small black community, just like still thriving. And so when I read about you initially, I read like you went to West Point. You said it wasn't so much about the male machismo attitude that men had, but the focus was really about you being the black girl in the center of a lot of this whiteness.
Yes.
And how people would say for you to sing or for you to dance like in front of people to show how black you are, how talented you are. So what did that feel like in West Point?
Right. So it actually I had mixed feelings. My mother was an off-Broadway dancer. I grew up on the stage doing plays and performing. So as much as I loved to perform, I knew that these performances were different. It was very contrived, and to have people looking out their doors and just watching you perform during a time that you should be studying, during a time where you should be preparing for exams and getting the knowledge that you really needed to succeed at the academy. It was very frustrating. I did what I needed to do. I sang enough and I danced enough. I did, because I needed to make it. I needed to be able to satisfy that and move forward to doing what I needed to do, which was get back to my room to study so I could ultimately graduate. So making it for me meant a little singing and dancing, if you will, no problem. I will sing to be young, gifted, and black. I will sing, lift every voice and sing. And then they say, okay, enough. Okay, enough.
Oh, the national anthem? I'm going to teach you mine, though.
So it was a journey, but a collection of those experiences created who you see today.
So you talk about like what happened at West Point, and the reason why I focus on leadership is because you have all these, and I'm sorry, these are not microaggressions. These are macroaggressions.
Right.
They are not microaggressions anymore.
Nothing small about it.
Nothing small about it. I'm asking about leadership because what did their leadership look like, and what was their response?
Right. So it's interesting because the senior leaders at the academy are senior military officers, and they have had all kinds of diversity training. It wasn't called that then. At the time, it was just called respect for others. And the senior officers got it. They understood what things should be like and what they shouldn't be like. They knew that. It was the cadets coming in from different places and walks of life all over the country who had not been trained, who had not been exposed, who lived in homogeneous communities and went to homogeneous places of worship and homogeneous schools, coming together saying, does that brown skin of yours rub off? Like, how does that work? How to go about making things different. Right. So, for instance, we couldn't wear our hair braided. As a black female, you could not wear, white female either, no braids. Okay. The only thing you could do was one French braid down the back. Okay. So the upperclassmen, black females, and I was a lower classman at the time, but they took the lead on writing a proposed change to the regulations. Yes. And so in 1998, the regulations were approved and we were allowed to wear braids at the academy, and I went and I got my braids.
Now we're talking about cornrows. We're talking about
Bob
bob
braids.
braids.
I had bob braids. Yeah, yeah.
Because I would have had Signalese twists. Right?
Yeah, I did that too. I did that too my junior year. Yes. So I had braids at the academy.
So that goes to show you how long it's taken, because West Point's been open for quite some time. 1802.
Yes.
So we had all this time until 1998 to it's not accommodating. It's not even accommodating. It's being open-minded and realizing there are other people who do not look like you, whose hairs do not grow like yours. And it took all this time. So now that you're here, you received your degrees in organizational development and leadership. That's organizational. Come on, organizational development, leadership. Don't sleep on us. You focused a lot with HR partners and engineering in these top engineer firms. What has the rise from there, because that's great, to being mayor of Willingboro, what did that leadership look like climbing to here? Like, what has it always looked like to you?
For me, the leadership that I've seen from the organizations that I've been in has been overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly male. But if you think about how I got there, coming out of the academy was overwhelmingly white and male. And as a military officer, overwhelmingly white and male. So what I learned how to do was to really work well with the overwhelmingly white male leaders that I had, so I could understand and learn and glean and maneuver and navigate to get to a place where I was comfortable and authentic being who I am, and understanding how sometimes you have to take a step back to help educate people about the differences and also about what you bring to the table. So yeah, it's different, but it's also an asset to you, and here's how. And being able to articulate that in a way to try to almost not de-escalate, but to help people not to feel threatened. It's almost to disarm.
So you're teaching, you taught white people how to disarm themselves from being scared of black people or people of color.
Yes, and that's important.
And is that like a notion in the corporate world that you work with oftentimes with white males? That were
Those
dangerous?
have been my experiences. Dangerous because you're unfamiliar and unknown, and all that I know is a stereotypical image that I've seen, whether it be Claire Huxtable or a different type of black woman on a different type of show. And so when people don't have real world lived experiences, often their first response is fear. They're just afraid.
I think we can agree that the previous presidential administration of this country's campaign has been based on fear. Particularly as a Latina, I've seen we're coming over here illegally to rape your children and women and take your jobs that nobody's wanted. But that's
the jobs that would remain unfilled.
That people rely on regularly. What do you feel like the difference is in this administration?
Oh, I am so hopeful.
Because you ever like got the results and was like, oh, thank you, Jesus, I can breathe.
Hopeful. President Biden ran on talking about being the soul of the nation and lifting every voice and bringing everyone together. And so I am optimistic about the change. I really believe that as Americans, we have what we need inside of us to be able to go forward, but we need the right leader to help propel us forward. We need the right leadership to be able to unite the country, to bring us together, to find the common good. I think that's critical. And when you have a leader who likes to dwell on things where people feel insecure and vulnerable, and they use fear-mongering tactics, it really, well, we saw what happened with the uprising and the domestic terrorism that happened at our U.S. Capitol. I mean, that's what happens when you tap into people's fear and you conjure all of that up, and it goes unchecked, and wrong information, disinformation, lies, deceit, that's what happens. So I am very optimistic that under this current administration, things are going to look so much better.
Lighter. It just feels lighter. I think even the fear-mongering has, like, okay, the administration is done, and people are like, okay, well, Donald Trump, you know, he's done, stop talking about him. I'm like, no, like, this past week, because of the things he said, like, a place of aging own business was attacked.
That's domestic terrorism.
That's domestic terrorism.
Yes.
People are like, no, well, it's not terrorism, it's a hate crime. I said, no, we're going to call it what it is. It's propelling a political ideology forward.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because he didn't go into an all-white community and do this.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, this is not...
And it was more than just having a bad day.
It's more than just having a bad day. This is, and I'm not going to sit here and say that mental illness does not exist. We know this, but we're going to stop using that as a reason to absolve our white counterparts for the things that they are responsible for doing, especially when it comes to a domestic crime. My heart goes out to like the people in that family,
the families,
the Asian community.
yes.
And I think people don't see the long-term damage. So with this administration, it seems like a big breath of fresh air.
Yes.
It feels
a sigh of relief.
Okay, it feels refreshing.
Yes.
I'm like, sis, hey sis. I wrote about Kamala Harris in my graduate thesis in 2017.
Wow.
About just the lack of women of color in leadership. And to see her where she is, it's like, I saw this years ago. I wrote about this woman years ago. And now it's just like, people ask me like, well, what does leadership look like now?
It looks more representative of our population as a whole, but we still have work to do.
It looks like you. Leadership looks like you.
Yeah, it does. That's true. But you know, in my mind, I'm just a leader anyway. I'm a leader of myself. I don't believe so much in waiting for someone to empower me. I believe that the power is within, and each person has to power up. Right. Because if you just think about the construct of the word empowered, that means someone has to bestow the power upon you. So who are you waiting on to give you the power that you already have within you? I'm just saying.
I don't have a collection plate to pass, so.
I really believe that. I really believe that.
It's so funny, like me and one of my good friends, Kim, you know Kim, she used to work for you at ATAP.
Yes.
Yeah, she, now she has a creative danger murder mystery company. But when we talked a few weeks ago, we discussed like how it is that we don't take control over our mind or our authority that like God has already given us. And oftentimes we lean on the little voice in the back of our head that says, don't do it, you can't. And sometimes I think by default we wait for that voice to empower us, and it's not
going to. Right.
It's not going to. And it's important to really like, as the Bible says, like cast down all those imaginations and really like take up that authority that you have in yourself.
That's
We've waited for women, white women in particular, we've looked at them as the epitome of what leadership should look like. And then when they don't include us, we're like, okay. So I'm gonna just be left out of this. And then we have somebody coming up like, say Oprah, who challenges the status quo.
I always wonder for my white colleagues who do decide to take a stand and say, wait a minute, this isn't right. At what point did that happen? Because there has to be an awakening of some sort at some point, but it only comes, I believe, if you've been exposed to other things, or if you're even curious about how other people live or why. I think it would require a lot of introspection, self-reflection, and acknowledging that you're benefiting from an existing system. So if you don't want to deal with that's the hard work. To identify that you benefited from a system that you're in, and now you want to break down the system that you're benefiting from.
Sounds backwards to think of it.
Why would I do that?
Why would I do that?
Why would I do that? Why would I do that?
Would it make sense?
No. So that's, so I understand that people, we would say, well, why wouldn't you want to break it down? Why wouldn't you want to challenge? Why wouldn't you want the playing field to be equal? Why wouldn't you want equity and equality? And well, because everything is stacked in my favor. What are you saying?
Why would I do this for you?
And so I think it's a complex issue. I think it has to be addressed. It has to be reckoned with. But I do understand the complexity, the challenge, and why some people struggle with that.
Yeah. Mahershala Ali explained a couple years ago that white men and black men, they walk the the earth differently. Like
Yes.
they run
Yes.
the earth differently, right?
Yes.
So I believe he said white men roam around this earth on offense,
Yes.
like a football team.
Yes. Woo.
But black men run on defense.
Yes, they do.
So they know at any point in time they're going to take a hit, and that it will interrupt their environment.
That's right.
Will interrupt where they are in life. But white men, because their world is built off of offense,
Right.
they don't got to worry about that because they're not the ones taking the hit. The black men are.
And the T is they don't even know they're on offense.
Don't know.
They think this is just what this looks like because they don't have any experience that tells them otherwise.